is the Super Bowl.
Hey everybody, welcome back to day 3 of installing the Supercharger. And so today we're going to be changing out the spark plugs. We're going to be installing the map sensor, and we're going to do a few other little odds and ends things too to button this up and hopefully be able to get the tune in and fire up today. That's the hopes. All right, right now we're going to be installing the spark plugs. These are the ones that came with the kit. We want to double check to make sure the gap is correct on them. A little anti-seize to put onto the threads as you put the new ones in. And we'll want a little bit of dielectric grease to put a little bit into each one of the ignition coils as we put them back on, just to make sure that everything stays nice and dry and good connection in there as well. So we'll do that first, and then we'll move on to the next phase. I won't go into this step by step because I'm going off the assumption that if you're installing a supercharger that you know how to change your spark plugs. If not, I do have another video out there, so hit that subscribe button and go check out that video out there for doing a tune-up on the 3.6. All right, so next, after doing the spark plugs, we want to go ahead and change out this map sensor. So you're going to get this one here, and we're going to replace that. All right, so after you tighten it up and loosen it enough, take that on out, set it to the side. This is going to be one of our easier changes. Push this down to be able to remove that plug. Then just push in the new one. Plug that up. Just screw the screw back in. All right, the next thing we want to do is install our mass airflow sensor. And so to do that, we need to take off the mass airflow sensor from our original air box or your cold air intake, whichever one you had set up. All right, so there's the mass airflow sensor, and you should also have this with your kit. So now that it's going to be in a different location, it's going to need some an extension cable on there. So this will extend it from where the plug is now to where it's located at now. I was testing it out to see if it actually could be put in wrong. So luckily the holes don't line up, so there's only one way to put it in. All right, so now our mass airflow sensor wire plug is over here on this side by the oil cap, and we need to connect it over here onto the passenger side. So that's where we're going to take this, plug it into here to connect it over into there. All right, so I plugged it in over here, and I routed it underneath, and I'm just going to plug it in, lock down the tap, and then I'll secure this to make sure there's no chance of it going down and touching, you know, any of your pulleys over here and cutting. And also too, remember we unplugged the throttle body. Make sure you take that plug and plug it back into the throttle body. All right, and looking for the best spot for the oil catch can. In the instructions they talked about up in this area, I didn't see that happening. I didn't see that working at all. This is very tight cable right here of wire loom, that is. I'm not going to be pushing on that. Those wires in there are like over a decade old. So the last thing I want to do is have any particular one wire up in there decide to crack or break because I'm trying to move this around. So trying to get it into this little spot right here just wasn't going to happen at all. Yeah, at least with the bracket they provided. If I made my own bracket, I may be able to extend it over to hit this particular little spot here to get down up in there, but it has to be dead on. Other than that, there's really no place else to put that up in here. Back here, the bracket they provided for the windshield washer doesn't really allow for me to utilize any of those holes in conjunction with it. So there was a hole right here next to it. So I fastened it on there, as you can see, and then I angled it over so they'll drop down and not bump into anything. So that'll be the spot. All right, so I have the catch can mounted right there. I angled it that way so that the hoses won't need to be bent in any weird way. So we can start running the hoses. Here are two of them right here. And the one up here, this one goes to, you see this hose right here that routes all the way back to, let me see if I can point that out to you, to there, right there. So this is the plug that was on there right here for the PVC back here. So what I need to do now, because this one right here, and let me get the other piece. Let me zoom it out a little bit for you guys. This was here like this. Now again, this is a used unit, the entire system that I'm installing. So certain things you may want to change when you're using a used unit. So this check valve right here, if you shake it, it's not making any noise. That's letting you know that the check valve is bad. How the noise that it's supposed to make here is, you hear that? That's the noise it's supposed to make. So I need to replace it. And if you notice, there is an arrow on there showing what the correct direction. And the same as on here, you have an arrow. So we're going to replace the check valve on there before installing it. All right, so now what I'm about to do, I'm about to walk you through the setup for the oil catch can. All right, so pay attention now, because a lot of things that went on with this one. It's not like your typical oil catch can. That's pretty straightforward for connecting up. So let's start off with the easy one. You have the one going from the cap, okay? So you're replacing your cap with this cap that comes with it, and it goes down and it feeds into, there's going to be a hole in the side of that, and there's a plastic, what do you want to call that? A nub on the end of this hose, so it just sticks down into that hose. So that's for the cap. Now for one of your ones coming off, so you got your two outer ones and your center one. For this one going on the outer, it's going all the way across, coming over here, and there's a hole in the top of the Cobra head silicone hose. So so this right here is going to have a 90-degree plastic nub on the end of it. This hose right here. So you just push that down into that hole in this hose. You're going to have your check valve on here, and your all check valves should always be pointing away from the catch can. So you see your arrow is pointing away from the catch can. So for the line that's going into the Cobra head hose, you should have a check valve on there. For this one right here, that goes down to exo filter, the one I showed you earlier, that one does not have a check valve on there, all right? Now let's go to the center one. All right, so from the factory, you have this hose coming from the top of your intake manifold, all right? And it routes back and goes back here to your PCV valve back behind here in your valve cover right there, all right? So what you have to do, you end up cutting this not in half, I would say more towards the end of this hose right here, the one that's the factory one that's coming off of here. And so you're going to reuse the connection that was on here already and put it back on there, and you'll have maybe say 6 inches of hose that you cut on there. And you're going to take the center one, take this hose here, and then you're just going to slide it over that hose. So again, you're going to take this center one, and you're going to add on, what is that, roughly about 8 inches of hose right here. You're going to have about 8 inches of hose that's going to, as you can see how I did it, I just slid it over the plastic tube, the factory plastic tube that goes with that connection over the PCV valve. Now, some of the Cadillac CTSs have a different PCV setup. The Tracy Lewis Overkill directions will address the different situations, but this is how it is for mine. So for the other end of that hard plastic tube, and when I say that, I meant this right here. So this is the hard plastic tube. Up here, you're going to take the remaining piece. So this is all factory, coming from here, coming around here, and then I just took the end. So right about here is where I cut this hose that went back there. So the other end right here is coming off of this one right here, and I've just pushed it into this hose right here. So that is where that one goes, all right? So again, this one right here, one of the outer ones, left or right on the outers, doesn't matter which one you use for the setup, but on here, the outer one is going to here. The center one, that one is important, goes back here to the back of the valve on the passenger side. All right. And you can kind of see it right there. There it is. And then the other outer one goes all the way around here with the check valve into the Cobra head. And so you should have 2 check valves on here. You see the other outer one also has a check valve on it as well. And you see the arrow is pointing away from the catch can, and that's the check valve that goes for here. Now from the throttle body spacer you put on here, so you thread that hose into there. It's a plastic thread on here that threads up into there, and this one comes down, route behind there, comes down and connects onto your blowout valve. All right, so that's your setup for your catch can. Now, on the newer setups that they have for Tracy Lewis Overkill Superchargers, I think they may have switched over to a different catch can system, possibly. So their setup may be slightly different. So, and also depending on the engine you have, whether your valve covers are pre-2013, I believe, you may have a different setup that way too, whereas they have a different suggestion for you as far as for the PCV valve. So just make sure to read the instructions that they send you their guidance. This right here is just giving you a visual, but always follow the instructions that they send to you. And you'll also get this little nub right here. And so the hose that you took off over here, you will put that over on the end of that. Like so. See it? All right, now it's time for fluids before the tune. Make sure to put your power steering fluid back in there. Over here on the Procharger, we want to change the Pro charging oil up in here. So you want to get your number 8 Allen wrench. Yeah, just trust me, it's number 8. Loosen it up, and I'll let you get the dipstick out. You can take the oil, but we're changing it. And this right here is your drain tube right here. Put a 9/16 and a 9/16 and a half inch on here to open this up. Have a bucket at the bottom to let the old fluid drain out in there. Close it back up, and then you put your new fluid in. And this is the new fluid. I have these, and I have 3 other bottles too as well, so I can always make sure I have more on hand to do my oil changes as I need it. Take that off. I got my bucket down there, so I'll feed it down into the bucket. Let the old fluid drain out. Give that a couple of minutes to drain before closing that back up. All right, now that we're done draining, I've closed this back off. And to be safe, I'm going to zip tie this up someplace good in here. You got a lot of moving parts up in there now, even more so now. So you don't want this going just dangling around down there. So strap it up someplace good. And now we're going to remove our dipstick out. Make sure that your copper washer that you see right there either it goes back in or stays in there during your refill. Either or, just make sure it's in there when you close it back up. Now we're going to take our fluid, cap open, a full bottle, put it in there, set it in, and let it start filling. All right, after you pour the full bottle in there, and you're going to take your dipstick, put it down in there. Not tighten it all the way down, but get it down so it touches the bottom. Then back her back off. Pull the dipstick out, and then just check to validate that you actually do have oil up in there. And then you can close her up, tune her, and fire her up. So let's get ready to get this puppy tuned. All right, so I'm getting ready to tune it now. I have received a tune file from Tracy a while back, so I was already prepared for this. So this is just a straight bass tune for the Stage 1 kit. I have it all plugged in here and plugged into the OBD2 port over here. I'm already pointed it towards the file that I'm using, the Overkill bass. And now I believe I need to turn the car on. Here we go. We need to turn the key, not to the run position, but to the number 2 position, the furthest position before starting her up. Then we need to come back over here and I believe go to flash and right vehicles. Let me make sure nothing is about to pop on like the radio or anything. I think we're okay that way. And so I'm gonna do right to vehicle. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, man. There we go. So flash, right to vehicle. I'm doing right calibration, right. So I'm going to do right now. All right, I think it is all done. So now we can start her up. All right, everyone. So there it is, all installed and running. I haven't had a chance to drive her yet, not in this condition. But I won't be able to drive her until I'm all done doing the other things I have to do. I still have to replace out this fender that I already have painted and ready to be installed, so I'll be doing that. I'll be changing out the current splitter over to this carbon fiber splitter. I'll be getting rid of this front badge and changing it back out to the black one I originally had on there. And I also have to dip all of the plastics up underneath here as well and clean all this all up, because there's a car show coming up. I'm one of the premier ones that's going to be in inside spot, so I have to have everything on point on the car. But back to the Supercharger. Now, as far as difficulty go, I would say this isn't a difficult build at all. I would say, especially if you're buying your kit brand spanking new from Tracy Lewis, all be packaged up, everything clearly identified, everything will be in there. I purchased a used kit, so it was a little bit of stuff I had to do ahead of time. So luckily I did all my homework, what made it go smooth for me. But either way, it's not really a bad. If I wasn't recording everything, and I could easily do this in, I mean, it could be done in a full day, to be honest. But without overexerting yourself, I would say 2 days. You can have this thing done in 2 days. I could have had it done yesterday, but I had other obligations. Plus, it started raining. It was cold out. But today is quite the opposite. Beautiful out here. And one last thing, just make sure you have octane level gas of number 93 octane level of gas in here. I had already been running 93 in preparation for this, so I already have about a half a tank of 93 up in there, but you don't want 87 up in here when you're trying to run that. When I have everything all put together, I'll do a video of me rolling this thing down the road, all right? If you guys liked, hit that like button and definitely hit that subscribe button. But thanks for watching this 3-parter of me installing the Supercharger.
Man, this shit done it big as the what? Big as the what? Big as the Super Bowl.